Welcome to On the Point Podcast, a podcast for all things Overwatch with a heavy focus on League. We are back this is our episode 2. It's only our episode 2. There is so much stuff that has happened since the last time we recorded.
We've passed from the signing, the sort of like sign call up drop period for the existing teams, and now we're in the period where the expansion teams have exclusive rights to any free agents out there.
So this is going to be another really news-heavy episode for those of you listening for the first time. Hello, I'm Katie. I'm the casual.
I'm CJ, and I am what you would call a fanatic.
You're the expert in this situation because I'm still sitting here going, I wear my team colors and I root for the team I like, and you're the one that's like, I know all of this meta and how it works.
Well, actually, this team used to be called this back in 2016.
And they recruited this player who is now over here and has this record and does this other thing and also used to play with this player. Like, your depth of knowledge is kind of terrifying sometimes, but it's great.
As I've said before, I have a problem.
Define problem.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Awkward silences aside, like I said, we do have a lot of news to cover, so let's get right into it. We have so many roster moves, including a very surprising one that dropped last night, and honestly, I kind of want to lead with that.
Yeah, and this one was in the rumor mill for a while. Like, a lot of people had talked about it. I think even XQC mentioned it on his stream as a thing that was going to happen. Dante going over to Houston in exchange for Smurf, the main tank player from Houston's academy team, GGEA.
This one was, I'm a member of the Outlaws Discord, and this one was such a shock to me when it dropped last night in the announcements channel, because I don't follow the rumors as much. I just kind of wait for the initial announcements because I've been on the Hollywood scene too long for rumors to mean anything without receipts.
Yeah.
But, oh my god, this took me completely by surprise. I'm honestly trying to figure out what the shock is doing because this is great for Houston. This is a really good trade.
Oh, this is a fantastic trade for Houston because the most glaring weakness on Houston as an organization has always been their lack of a tracer player. Like, we were talking about it a bit earlier today, but, you know, Linkster can play a tracer okay, Jake can play a tracer, you know, okay, but they're both so much better at other things that sticking them onto that role is a big opportunity cost. And right now, Sombra is very strong, and Dante was pretty much the scariest Sombra in Overwatch League, so you've given yourself a very valuable meta-dependent tool, and also help short up a weakness on your roster for something that effectively doesn't change your core on the Outlaws roster at all.
So then, what does the Shock get in exchange for this? Like, what are the perks for them in this trade?
Well, I'd say in this case, Smurf is a big get. Smurf really is. Like, I know I talked a bit about Panker as being one of if not the best tanks in NA contenders in the previous episode, but Smurf is up there as well. Like, I would put him, if Panker's number 1, Smurf's at number 2. And GGEA had a very sort of rocky contender season, and Smurf was one of the consistent bright spots in my mind. The thing for me is that they already have a really good main tank who has built up synergy with the squad in the form of Super. And if they're bringing Smurf in for a backup, I don't know, that seems kind of wasteful for Smurf's talents.
Especially if they're losing Dante for it.
Yeah, exactly, because Dante's... I kind of understand them being willing to trade Dante because they have Sinatra who can play Tracer to a very high level and also has that flex pick onto Zarya that's very scary. So I can understand it, and they've got a very strong DPS line even without Dante, but I don't feel like getting Smurf for them is as big of a get as it would be for, you know, some other team, maybe.
Yeah. I'm wondering if Shock doesn't have something else in the pipeline where they'll recruit a few more people and then suddenly we'll see that everything made sense because they also got Bob, Joe, and Fred who work really well in this
Yeah,
composition.
I think so. And the one thing to keep in mind is they brought on Choi Hyobin late in last season, off tank player from that used to be part of X6 Gaming, and maybe they're hoping that by bringing in a Korean main tank, you'll have like some really top tier synergy between Smurf and Choi Hyobin that you can, really capitalize on in game.
Well, hopefully.
Like, yeah, remove the language barrier entirely, even though I will say Super and Choi looked pretty good working with each other.
Hmm. So, so this is still, we've been saying this a lot these past couple of episodes because this is still the stage that we're in, but it's still a whole lot of we'll see.
It is, and I don't think it's a bad move. Like, I don't think it hurts the Shock. It's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, this is a good move, but this isn't like the sort of coup that I would sort of expect for trading a player as big as Dante.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to downplay Smurf at all, because Smurf is awesome.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with Smurf, so I saw this announcement and literally shoved my chair back and went, "What?"
Oh no, I remember just because I got the just message on Discord, fucking caps lock on, like.
I was very surprised. I was very surprised.
Yeah, I was less surprised. It was more of an, oh, okay, that's for real then, shit.
And like I said, I'm not as in touch with the rumor mill, so getting that drop was like, oh,
Yeah,
what?
and I do want to make a quick aside about the rumor mill, is we're not going to try and get into it too deep. We're going to try and focus on things that either are not too controversial, because there's some things out there right now that are points of contention, and we're just going to focus on stuff that, has been corroborated by multiple sources, and we're, going to steer clear of, certain controversies regarding stuff.
Yeah, if we touch on something that is a rumor, we will say this is a rumor. We don't have any sources on this, so until it is substantiated or completely denied, make of it what you will. But we're not going to present any rumors as fact, and we're going to try not to weigh in too much on some of the controversies. Like, we do have opinions, very obviously, but we're also going to try and keep this more of a news source and keep our opinions to other places.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Kate Mitchell and the controversy about that's being put out there, we're just going to wait and see how that plays out before we really, talk about that in any sort of depth.
If we talk about it at all.
Yeah.
This is for those people like, what thing with Kate Mitchell? Google it if you really want to know. But it's just drama, is what it sounds like. So,
Yeah. It's one of those things where there's enough back and forth that I'm not sure who to completely buy into yet, so we're just going to sidestep that. But bringing her up, as she is the GM of Washington, we get to talk a little bit about the two signings that DC made, which are actually the first signings that we have for an expansion team, the first confirmed ones.
Yep.
And that is Wizard Hyung and Jonas of former NYXL fame over to DC, and I think this is a really damn good start to a team. Wizard Hyung has always been rated very highly throughout his work for the league and did some great work coaching LW Blue and LW Red, the teams that would sort of get thrown into a blender to build NYXL. And Jonas, I know that, NYXL cut him, but I think that was more maybe of a stylistic clash than anything, because Jonas is a fantastic tank. He's got a very aggressive, flanky style, kind of like lurk and pounce and really make the enemy kind of panic and turn their attention on him and buy space through taking very aggressive dives from weird angles. And it's very powerful if you've got a team that can play around it.
So is Wizard Hyung a coach then?
Yes, Wizard Young is a coach. He's going to be, I would assume their head coach. I think they said he's the head coach. If not, I would be shocked if they put anyone else in that position.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And at this
Yeah.
point, it's a matter of building a team up around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's who they put in around them, and hopefully they get people that will complement Jonas's very aggressive, unorthodox style. Because I think if you do that, that could be something that other teams could have difficulty adapting to. Because I remember during the Stage 4 playoffs, Arrow, the head coach of the Dallas Fuel, broke down their game against NYXL, and he said Jonas was actually one of the big problems for them because not many other people play like him, and him doing his crazy aggressive thing kind of put them on the back foot and stopped them from playing as confidently as they would have needed to be to win those first two maps and maybe avoid going to a game 5.
So, what players, what other free agents, what academy players, etc., would you put on a team with Jonas who can play like that and keep up with him?
That's hard to say.
One of those essay questions where you need about 10 minutes to prepare?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. If you think of anyone, we'll come back to that. But
yeah, for sure, but I think it's probably going to be a Korean roster of some kind. Because with Wizard Hyung being a Korean head coach, Jonas being a Korean main tank, and they're the building blocks for your team, I think that's a kind of natural place to go. I think let me pull this up real quick, and sorry for the keystrokes, ladies and gentlemen, because the team in question here, there used to be two teams under the same umbrella organization, Kongdu Panthera. Kongdu Panthera played in Contenders. They've been a team around for a very long time. I think that you might be able to see them come in and be, an interesting complement, because Kongdu Panthera played a very sort of tank-heavy style, and I think if you want to sort of use that as a basis, it could be good for that.
and that would work really well with Jonas's style.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Like, it's hard to say without, going back and reviewing some footage, but I think it could work. And they're also a team that they came in second overall in the in Contenders Korea, losing only to my boys of the pink sweatered fame, Runaway.
Your favorite.
Yes, Runaway and the Dallas Fuel forever have my hearto.
Like I said, I'm a Valiant fan, so when it comes to us talking about those inevitable matches for Season 2, those are going to be some interesting episodes.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have
those are gonna...
opinions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But speaking of NYXL, it looks like they have found a new off-tank.
Yeah, and again, we'll confirm that this is something that's been rumored by a bunch of people.
Okay.
Yeah, this is mostly rumor, but it's something that makes a lot of sense. And there's one that I forgot to throw in here, that Nanohana, who people will remember as Flower of 2017 World Cup fame, and Nene. And these two are known for their DPS play. Flower hasn't looked... Nanohana now, because he's bounced back and forth between names, but he's sticking with Nanohana for the moment. Nanohana hasn't looked quite as... he hasn't looked as good in Contenders as he did in that, unworldly high that he hit in the 2017 World Cup with Team South Korea. But if he can hit that point again, that is a... You're on a team that already has Pine, Sabiolbi, and Libero. Adding a weapon like Nanohana, if he can get anywhere close to that peak again, that is horrifying. That is just downright unfair. That's a SWAT team kicking down your door, fucking rifle in your face. That is what do you do against that but cry?
Your best is what I'd say.
You damn well try.
Yeah. So the NYXL is trying very hard to reclaim the momentum that they had throughout,
Yeah.
I'd say, stage 2, stage 3, and a good chunk of stage 4.
Yeah, and I think that, provided they can make the coaching changes, because NYXL is one of those teams that is ridiculously strong in if you're playing to their meta, basically. If you let them do what they want to do, they are probably the best team in the world. And the meta towards the end of stage 4 didn't really let them do that, and they didn't quite seem to hit that point again where they're as comfortable. Back to Nene, though, because we didn't get into this.
True.
He's something most people will know as a DPS for XL2, and he's really good at it. But he's being brought up as off-tank, allegedly.
Okay.
And some people might not know this, but he used to play off-tank for Lunatic High after Lunatic High's main roster got signed to the Seoul Dynasty. And he was an off-tank for them, and even when we got to see it in Contenders, Nene's Zarya is crazy. It's really good. So I think it's a very nice compliment that they can have. Say they're going to be going into a map where they're not going to use D.Va as much, and that's, where Meko reigns supreme. If you can have Nene on that Zarya, that's a very valuable tool.
Okay, so not necessarily what they're known for now, but definitely something they're capable of.
Yeah, definitely. Nene is a very good off-tank player, and I think with the help of the infrastructure that NYXL has built, you might see something really special come out of him.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something to keep an eye on, provided that it gets confirmed, because once again,
Yes.
this is the rumor mill right now.
Yeah. And speaking of off-tanks, we've got a Dallas Fuel, which rumor mill says they're looking to sign another off-tank to supplement Mickey, which makes a lot of sense to me, because Mickey's brig is fantastic, but... So something that a lot of people who got into Overwatch with the League will probably have a little trouble believing, but Mickey, pretty much after he joined Envious, was considered to be the best D.Va in the world for a while.
Really?
Yes. And D.Va was different then. Defense Matrix was different. Micro missiles weren't really a thing. But Mickey had this really perfect playstyle for the way that D.Va was played at the time. And he was just all over the place. He got really famous as well for eating gravitons out of the air before they could go off.
Nice.
And getting absolutely massive, Poco-esque bombs.
Wow.
Yeah. So when the changes to D.Va came through and sort of the optimal way to play D.Va shifted a bit, Mickey hasn't really seemed to acclimate to that role, and I think Brigitte suits his playstyle a little more right now.
Well, yeah, your best Brigittas are your aggressive Brigittas. That's where she's meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, either on that front line, helping the tank line punch through, or being, sitting with the back line ready to receive divers.
Yeah. And the fact that she breaks dive comp, just that will forever make me so happy.
It's nice to have it in there that you can throw, because it forces a little more diversity into the meta, even if I think she is maybe a little too low skill, high impact right now. I'm just not sure where you'd find that balancing thing, because I'm not a game dev.
I mean, as someone who has trouble aiming, I appreciate low skill, high impact. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I know. I play main tank.
Meta, but I personally love it.
So yeah, rumor is they're going to be looking for a new off tank, because Seagull leaving kind of gives you a void in that position.
Yeah.
And having someone who can play the D.Va at a very high level is very important. Hastro confirmed, Hastro being the owner of the Dallas Fuel, that they're going to be getting at least one new face, which, of course, they've only got 7 players right now. They need one more.
I feel
But
like you can say we're going to be getting one new face works with literally every team in the league right now. Like, I will be very
yeah,
surprised if there is any given team that doesn't sign someone.
yeah, and basically what I'm hoping to see for Fuel is an off-tank player. Maybe they could like snatch Bishu or Void away from Gladiators, considering Gladiators has a wealth of really awesome off-tanks. But also a projectile specialist, because they've never really had a top-tier Genji. AKM, you're a legend, but your Genji is...
You're a legend, but not on that guy.
Well, you're a legend on Genji, just not for not for the reasons one would hope.
Oh
And I love that
no.
AKM's a really good a sport about that meme, by the way. Like, someone brought their
For those who
Overwatch...
haven't heard it,
Yes, the
let's hear this
AKM
story.
blade, because it took him, what was it, like 3.5 minutes to get his Dragon Blade as Genji when the sort of problems with fuel kind of forced him onto that role.
That's a
And
long time to build up an ult.
yeah, and he's not a Genji main. You have him for his Soldier, his McCree, and he's developed a pretty solid Widow as well. Not really known for Genji, and it's a very very long time to take that ult. The thing that's really funny though is a fan brought him the Overwatch art book, and they wanted him to like sign the Soldier page because he's famous for his Soldier 76 play, best in the world. And he's like, well, why not Genji? Like, he signed the Genji page. And he's got out of his way to, like, turn into the spin. And when someone asked him, like, how did you get your mechanics to this level? And he's like, practice is the most important thing. I practiced for hundreds of AKM blades on Soldier to get to the level that I'm at. And I appreciate that he's willing to take the piss like that. He's a good sport.
He's leaned so far into the curve, he's horizontal.
Pretty much. He's just doing a full-on barrel roll into it.
That is pretty great, though.
It is. I love it. I really love it. And Fuel actually did a video. They have these videos they put out sporadically of like pro tips. And AKM's video for Genji was literally just him running around the map eating Jack in the Box for several minutes until the blade just built up over the natural sort of like ult build.
Oh my god.
He's like,
Wow.
remember not to kill anything with it, otherwise it won't be a true AKM blade.
Pro tip, literally none of this.
Yeah. It was hysterical though. I love it.
That's pretty great.
Shall we talk about one of the...
Let's move to Atlanta.
Yeah, Atlanta. So, I've not touched my mouse in so long that my monitor just turned off, and I had to fix that.
Well, Atlanta is another one of our brand new teams, so they're the ones that are
Yes.
really going for free agents right now, doing what they
Yeah.
can. So I'll be interested to see who grabs what once it's a full-on free-for-all. But that's not for, what, another week or two?
Well, yeah. The expansion teams still have pretty much their pick of the litter for a little bit longer.
Do we have a date for when it becomes a free-for-all?
We do. I have to look it up, though, because I didn't put that in my notes for some reason.
We will
because,
find that later and throw it in the description. In the meantime, let's talk about Atlanta.
Yeah. So Atlanta has... the rumors have sort of been that they're trying to build around a Korean team called Element Mystic. And Element Mystic is a Korean team that was known for having a very, very promising start that kind of got derailed towards the end. They played in Contender Season 1 and 2 of this past year. And the first time they were pretty much the favorite going through the whole tournament. Like, they looked so strong going through it that it's just like, okay, they're gonna win. It's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point. And then they got upset in the playoffs and got knocked out of there. And the other factor that kind of made them lose some of their luster in Korean Contenders Season 2 was that they lost one of their star players, a DPS by the name of Sparkle. Or it's like SP9K1 whatever. It's
We're
Sparkle.
doing what we
It's
can.
Sparkle,
We all
not even-
speak lead at this point.
Yeah. And I think Sparkle got caught boosting or something? Something of that nature. I'm going to confirm that right now.
In the meantime, while we're looking for that, it looks like the exclusive free agent signing window goes until October 7th. The 8th, October 8th is when it becomes a free-for-all, and by December 8th, every team has to have at least 8 players signed. So nobody's going to be doing the Florida mayhem of 6 players for 3 stages, and then we should probably better add someone so our current roster doesn't collapse. Like,
yeah,
I adore the mayhem. That was not a good strategy.
No, and we talked about it a little then, and we'll talk about it a little more now. But yeah, Atlanta has signed main coach Brad Rajani, also known as Seffi, and he was known for coaching Selfless Gaming. And Selfless was known for a really, really aggressive style. It's actually kind of where we started to get Sinatra became a big name on that team. And so the rumor is that Atlanta's trying to build around some players from Element Mystic, particularly main tank Pokpo and off-tank player Dako. And it's a really good start. They were one of the most dependable tank lines throughout Korean Contenders. And the other bit of the rumor mill is that it's going to be a mixed roster. The other rumored players are Erster from Lucky Future Zenith, which is a team that played in Chinese Contenders. It's a Korean roster playing in China. And they're really good. And the other one being Kodak. And I think he was on an EU Contenders team, but I'm forgetting which one, and I feel very bad about that. But the big rumor that we've got to address is the return of Defran. And Defran was also on Selfless, was pretty much like their star player. And the thing about Defran, which is first, take this rumor, just go into your kitchen spice cabinet, and pry the top off of the salt, and just dump it on your counter. That is the amount of salt this needs to be taken with. Because Defran has said in the past that he really doesn't have an interest in going back to being pro. And at the start, and throughout a lot of Overwatch League Season 1, he kind of trolled people with, rumors that he, might be signing. Because a lot of people want to see him back. And Defran is kind of a contentious figure in Overwatch. A lot of people love him. A lot of people also have a vehement dislike of him. Because he had, let's just say, some behavioral issues. He got a pretty long ban from Blizzard after basically kind of throwing a game that his team was going to lose anyway, while his team was kind of running to the point to try and stagger out, see if they could turn it around. They probably weren't going to, but he just kind of just hopped right off the map and killed himself. And shockingly, his team did not win.
And I would imagine reported him for that because sportsmanship.
Yeah, the tournament admins got very mad about it, and he was.
It was in a full-on tournament.
Oh no, it was a full tournament. He was playing against He was actually playing against the team that Custa and XQC played on before the Overwatch League.
Oof.
Yeah. So that was a bit of an ordeal.
And so at this point, looking at this rumor,
Well,
we run
well,
into the
there
same.
is
There's more.
there is one other thing, which
Hmm.
is Dufran is most infamous. Like, if he's famous for being potentially the best hit scan in the world, he is infamous for hashtag throw for Dufran. He would encourage his viewers on Twitch to Q snipe and throw games, like in large numbers. And it, for a while, there was kind of this, if you saw throw for Dufran in your chat, it's just this, oh no. It's like seeing the Jolly Roger at sea, like
Oh
in the
no.
Caribbean. Like, it was one of those things where you're just like, oh, this is ruining my day now.
Yikes.
And while he's kind of turned away from doing that, there are still some things that he does that I don't really like. Like, he one-trick Torb for a very long time, and while he's mechanically skilled enough to make it work, it's still one-tricking Torb, and that's something that, if that happened in your comp games, you would not be pleased about it.
I mean, there's
So,
absolutely a time and a place to play Torbjorn. He's not a bad character, but there's a
very
time and a
niche.
place to play Torbjorn.
Yeah, so
And I say that
basically,
as a Symmetra main, and there's very much a time and a place for Symmetra as well.
so yeah, Defran is someone who is somewhat controversial for very good reason. And this needs to be taken with a big grain of salt.
So,
Because,
yeah,
like
so
we talked about with XQC,
exactly. This is where you run into the XQC problem is even if they're better, which they might well be, I don't know enough about either of them as people to be like, oh yeah, they're fine, or oh yeah, no, they're terrible. Like, I don't have that knowledge, and so I'm not going to come down on either side of it, though I definitely have opinions. Even if they have improved in terms of behavior, there's still a question of looking at their fan bases, looking at their reputation, looking at yourself as a brand new team in the Overwatch League, and asking if theirs is a brand that you want to associate with your brand. Because sometimes the answer is yes, their skill is worth it, and sometimes the answer is no, we don't want to start off on that foot. So
yeah.
it's a very difficult question and one that has a case by case answer. And I'm dropping things.
And once again, this is very much a we'll see situation, because this is all kind of rumor at this point. And until, the Fran or Atlanta or whoever come out and confirm it as fact, it'll stay that way. However, let's move on to fact.
Yes,
Because your boys, Valiant, they made a bit of a roster move. They acquired someone, didn't they?
they did. I'm so proud of my boys.
Yeah, they picked up Kuki, former main tank player for the Seoul Dynasty, who I think Kuki ended up kind of getting underutilized due to the issues that Seoul had at main tank, doing sort of the Dallas shuffle of putting people in and out of that role until they found something that kind of worked for them towards the end.
Well, and it's so rough to watch a team do that because you're looking at this team that has a good amount of skill and it's communication issues that are killing them. It's a lack of cohesion that's killing them, and it's so hard to watch. And it happened with the Dragons. It happens with all sorts of teams, and it's just like, no, do better. I know you can. So we'll
Yeah.
see if this shakeup works for Seoul, and we'll see how it affects the Valiant lineup.
Well, I think Seoul is definitely, they're in a good place now that they have Fisher. Kuki to the Valiant, I think it's a solid move to have, a backup ready in the wings in case Fate needs time, or develop them the way that some teams have. There are certain cases where certain players' play styles suit a map better than another's.
Yeah.
And maybe that's kind of the idea with having Kuki there as well. It's conjecture. We'll see how they slot into the roster, but it's a move that makes sense. I don't really see a downside to it.
Well, and yeah, that's also why you want more than 6 players. So if you can rotate out, if you're, oh, hey, we're on Dorado. this person's better on Dorado. Let's swap.
Yeah. And last roster move we're going to talk about right now, as of this recording. Zephyr over to Florida Mayhem. Once again, Soul Dynasty player getting picked up by another team. Zephyr, you'll know him as an off-tank player. Apparently, he was kind of maligned during the main body of the season. Soul always said that he was really good in scrims, and that's why they played him over Zunba. But he never really seemed to realize that potential in-game didn't quite look as good as he did in scrims. And apparently he really impressed Florida in tryouts.
All right. So hopefully he can realize that potential on the Mayhem.
Yeah, and their Mayhem's coach, Ryder, or our tutor, however you pronounce it, said he looked great in scrims. And another interesting little bit is he said he really liked Team Giganti from Contenders EU, which that excites me because I love Team Giganti. I love the Finnish players from in Overwatch, and Giganti is pretty cool because they came out of the Ninjas in Pajamas roster, and they're basically where we get Fraggy, Linkser, Shaz, Big Goose, and Zappis.
I'm just really enjoying the fact that we had a roster called Ninjas in Pajamas.
Yeah, they're an esports org that's a pretty big name in a number of games. And the NIP roster actually pioneered 3 tank, 3 support as a play style back in the day, like way before Brig.
Huh. It's just,
And that's why when everyone calls it Goats Comp, I'm in the background just like, yeah. When everyone's like, oh, Goats Comp, I'm just in the background. It's like, it's still NIP to me.
I'm pretty sure that scans to that Billy Joel song.
But yeah, sort of speaking to that, Mayhem Academy signed the main tank of Team Giganti, LH Cloudy, who is cut very much from the same cloth as Fraggy. Very aggressive, forward-driving main tank. He is a terror on the Reinhardt who will come at you like a column of tanks. And part of me wonders if that's not like a stealth signing, that they picked up, you know, the free agent for the academy team so that they can just kind of call him up later when they want him in there, you know? And apparently they're also looking at Masa, who is one of the support players, and Davin, Davin is someone who I thought it was a huge shame that he wasn't in the Overwatch League to begin with. Because Davin was the Tracer player for Team Giganti. And he could also play a Zarya to a very, very high level. He was really good, you know, played well with the Giganti roster of the time, and has still looked really good on Giganti now. So if they pick him up, I think that's overdue.
Huh. So you think they've got something really good going for their roster, and we just haven't seen it yet?
I think so, and I'm just a Giganti Ninjas in Pajamas stan, and I'm just happy to see those guys doing well, and potentially moving up in the world. And speaking of the world, World Cup.
Before we get to that, though, I think we need to take a moment for a word from our sponsor. As usual, as always, because we adore him. On the Point is sponsored by Fred's BS. Breads and Spreads by Fred. Fred's BS is an LA local one-man baked goods business that offers unique flavors in small batches. Whether you're looking for homemade jams, brownies, blondies, or brown sugar buddies, the best cookies you've ever had, Fred's BS can provide. Oh yeah, no, they are wonderful. All products are made in small batches with fresh ingredients. Nothing is ever frozen. And Fred provides a plethora of flavors that can't be found in stores, like the aforementioned brown sugar buddies or his strawberry peach paradise sunrise jam. Also, if you're LA local, you can choose pickup instead of delivery and get your goods even sooner. Head to fredsbs.com and use coupon code ONTHEPOINT for 20% off of your entire order. That's fredsbs.com, fredsbs.com, and coupon code ONTHEPOINT. FredsBS. Treat yourself, because you deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a jar of that Paradise Sunrise jam in my fridge, and a box of brown sugar buddies, and I have been putting the jam on the cookies. And
oh my god.
Wonderful.
I need to place an order because I'm hankering for it. I really am.
It is unbelievably good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he makes good things and he sponsors us because he is.
He does.
I just, and oh my god.
Yeah, he does, and I'm gonna pivot away because
otherwise
I haven't
you're
eaten
gonna
all day,
cookies.
and I haven't eaten much today, and I currently have pizza like winking me in the face, just off to the side of my mic. My girlfriend is the best.
Pizza.
So
with that little flavor text, we should talk about World Cup.
World Cup. Los Angeles qualifier. We'll kind of skate through this real quick. We have Team Canada and Team USA moving on to BlizzCon in a turn that shocks literally no one. I think everyone kind of expected it to be these two.
I mean, you have to imagine my surprised face because I'm doing it right now, but I am so surprised by this turn of events. Oh my god. It's not like USA versus Canada was the match of the weekend or anything.
And it was a really good, really competitive game.
It really
that showcased what both teams can do. And I can't wait to see what Canada can pull out when they've had a little more scrim time, because apparently they didn't really have as much as they wanted to. And I think they'll look even stronger at BlizzCon. However, Team USA pulled off some really interesting flex picks and weird compositions. They had Sinatra on the Reinhardt, and it worked.
They were doing so many weird things, but just sitting back and watching that and going, oh yeah, no, this should be interesting. I wasn't able to watch it live. I was volunteering at the time, I think. So I wound up watching the VOD the next day, and I had it spoiled for me by Twitter, and oddly enough, by a guy in the grocery store line. Which,
really?
I love meeting Overwatch fans in the wild, especially when they're not wearing anything that says they're an Overwatch fan. How else would you even know? And I'm in the line to pick up things for a party that I'm going to later that night. My roommate and I are just kind of chatting, and I brought up, I saw on Twitter that I guess in the US-Canada match, Team US won, which, yay, go us. And the guy in front of us in line goes, yeah, XQC dove too deep twice and caused some problems. And I kind of went, oh, hi. Yay.
Yeah. XQC looked good, but he had a bit of a rough patch on Rialto.
I mean, everyone has a rough patch on Rialto. Rialto is a rough patch. That's not an easy map.
I will say he looked really good for someone who hasn't played at a professional level for a couple months, I think.
Yeah, it was a really fun game to watch, and it's always fun to run into fans like that in the wild. That's such a good time.
It was also kind of heartwarming to see XQC and Muma hug it out after the game. That was nice. I like that.
That does help.
And the other thing that I want to harp on real quick about LA before we get into Bangkok, the more recent of them, I was really impressed by Team Brazil.
Oh yeah.
They I think were the pretty clear third in this group. And most of them come from a team called Brazil Gaming House, the two-time champions of Contender South America. And I think they've hit that point where they've gotten as good as they can playing against teams within their region. And I hope you get to see some of them picked up for contenders, teams elsewhere, or for Overwatch League. Because I think these players have a really good upside. And I had never really followed Contender South America too closely before this, just because of time, and I've was never really super invested in players and teams from that scene. But Brazil impressed the hell out of me. Like, Neil looked really great, really forward, pressing, aggressive Reinhardt. Liko popped off all over the place. And Ale Mao on the Lucio. Oh my god.
And it'll be interesting to see how this goes, especially with the adjustments that have been made to support and trying really hard to get more support characters in the meta and to make a comp without a Mercy seem less like a throwaway comp. It'll be interesting to see Lucio players moving up in the ranks, seeing how, like, I'll be surprised if, given the way things are going, if Team Brazil isn't in some capacity picked up for a league team.
Yeah, I think I'd be surprised if there aren't at least some of them that will show up. And honestly, that is my favorite thing about the World Cup every year.
They technically count as free agents at the moment, don't they?
They do. They do.
Well,
they are not on an Overwatch League team, so they are free agents.
Well then.
Yeah, and this is my favorite part about the World Cup every year, is just seeing the absolutely insane people from around the world that you have no idea exist, but you see them go off, and you're just like, oh my, where have you been hiding? Like,
please come join my team. We just let most of our roster go. We could use you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have a lot of standouts from Bangkok as well, which I know you didn't get to watch as much of, right?
Timing is fun. So much of Bangkok was so late at night, and then we'd roll into the next day, and I would have things to do and wouldn't be able to catch the VOD before the next one started. So there's only so much Overwatch I can watch in a day.
And I only really got to watch as much of it as I did because when my shifts from at the Hollywood Bowl ended, it was just on when I came home. So I'm just like, okay, I'll turn this on while I decompress.
Yeah.
And I feel like Bangkok was interesting because in terms of the previous group stages, Incheon and Los Angeles, you had teams that very clearly stood head and shoulders above the others, you know? Yeah. Whereas I feel like it was a little more open in Bangkok. At least it seemed that way initially. Like, aside from China probably being the powerhouse looking at it going in, it seemed like it kind of could be anyone's game. Sweden kind of looked like a possible favorite going into the qualifier, but in the tournament itself, they kind of showed a little bit of a lack of responsiveness. Like, when something didn't work or an enemy choice gave them trouble, they weren't really great about adapting to it, and they only really started to show what they could do at the very end when it was already too late for them to qualify for BlizzCon. And that was something even the players said. Like, Reinforce really kind of picked up their morale in the back end of the tournament to sort of get them back into things. So Denmark and China emerged as the front runners. Denmark looked terrifying. China looked unstoppable. And they were the front runners with kind of Australia waiting in the wings to play spoiler. However, it was Sweden who ended up playing spoiler by beating Denmark and torpedoing Denmark's chances. And because Denmark took that loss, all Australia had to do was take one map off of China, and they were going to BlizzCon. And they managed to do it.
Which is not something that anyone really expected. Like, I feel like we had a lot of upheavals in Bangkok.
Yeah, Bangkok was very much a roller coaster. There was a lot of twists and turns to that, and I really liked it. It was interesting to watch these storylines kind of develop, of Sweden kind of losing that reputation for being a powerhouse region in Overwatch, because Swedish players used to be on every team. Every team. And, they were third place in the World Cup last year. And they didn't look good here. And we've got Denmark looked awesome. China looked really, really good. And it goes to show how strong this scene is when people's only exposure to it might be the Shanghai Dragons, and that's maybe not the best introduction to what Chinese Overwatch can be.
Well, the Dragons was a very specific instance of, again, there was just so much that went wrong for that team, despite the fact that they had a lot of talent.
Yeah, it was a lot of problems coming together to sort of make life hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, China and Australia going through. And I think I want to go through some of the standouts real quick. Which is looking at China, Guxue. Guxue, their main tank, oh my god. He was insane. Got the most out of his ults, was able to dive deep and get out, could play really aggressively, good at countering the enemy's plays. He just did everything right. Like, if this guy isn't picked up for one of the Chinese expansion teams, what the hell are your talent scouts doing?
Who knows? He might be picked up for the Dragons.
Maybe, though they kept Fearless on, so we'll see what happens with that.
True.
The other thing, Shy and Leave, the DPS duo for China, looked awesome. Leave especially really impressed me because as far as I know, he hasn't really done anything since the end of Miraculous Youngster in terms of pro play. But he didn't look like he missed a step. He was just on it from the word go.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that was something that just picked up really well in scrims, or do you think he's just that good?
The answer is yes.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other?
Pretty much. Going over to Denmark, Shax on the Widowmaker. I knew he was good, and I'd seen him perform in some tournaments in the past, but he was scary in this tournament. He was terrifying. Like, if you stuck your head out, you're about to get a foot shorter. Like, just where whatever map you were on. Nerfed looked really good on main tank. Like, he made a case for himself to get picked up in Overwatch League. Fisher looked really good, but I expected him to look good. He's been, kind of an Overwatch pro for a long time. Ding really impressed me with his Ana. He got a lot of really clutch sleeps. And that's a big part of being able to be a top-level Ana, is being able to hit those sleeps when it matters. Mm-hmm. Going over to Australia, Punk looked really good on D.Va, and I didn't really know much about him before that. Huss was really good on the Sombra, was a frickin' terror on that. Trill on main tank, Trill has always looked really good. And this was no exception. I really want him picked up for Overwatch League, and Uber's been campaigning for him on Twitter.
Well, and if Uber's behind you, then you know.
Yeah. He posted something today, like, somebody signed my boy, he claps left and right or something. Like, and CKM. His Pharah was awesome. Like, he was just pummeling people with that from the word go.
Well, and Pharah is anything but an easy hero to play.
Like, it's one of those things that'll either not make a huge difference or make a huge difference. And there were maps against Sweden where he pretty much won that on his own. Like...
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Looked really, really, really strong. And on Thailand, a team that didn't look quite as strong, you had two real standouts here. Pizzawatch, their main tank, he tried very hard, and he looked a little shaky. The cohesion wasn't really there for the team as a whole, but I think he's a player who has an upside, though maybe not as big as the upside for the other player, Patapan. Or I'm assuming it's Patapan. I don't know how to pronounce it.
That PH makes me think it might be Fan.
Yeah, but Mickey, his name has the PH, and it's pronounced like Ponghop, so maybe Patahan? I don't know.
We're good at this, you guys.
I'm just going to just blanket apology to anyone whose name I messed up, because I am trying, but I do not claim to be good outside of a very narrow window of linguistics. Anyway,
we are
Patapan.
Two people who speak American, and I've got enough French and Japanese to be able to figure out some pronunciations, but Thai and Korean are just beyond me.
I'm in a very similar place. But Padapan looked awesome. He popped off on a number of heroes, had some very Haksal-esque moments on Genji, and if anyone knows what I'm talking about, you know that's a good thing. And he's 15.
Wow.
He's 15, and he was hanging with anyone they threw him in there with. This is a kid to watch in future years, because I would really love to see him get picked up by a contenders team and built up as talent, because I think this kid's got a really, really big upside. Like, in a couple of years, he could be something really special.
Yeah, he's too young for league, but contenders.
Yeah,
Be
and
interesting.
I think we could see people, scouting him and trying to sign him in the days and weeks and months to come.
So it sounds like we had a lot of really solid main tanking and a lot of really good DPS this past weekend.
Yes.
So
I was consistently really impressed by the front lines and offensive capabilities of a lot of these teams.
So we will see what happens at BlizzCon, and we'll see what happens.
Don't forget,
in
we've
terms
got Paris.
Well, I was getting there. I was going to say, and we'll see what happens in terms of league recruitments, because most of these people are on the table. But yeah, before that, we have Paris. We've got Great Britain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, who is listed as DE, and that threw me off so much. The Netherlands and France, and it looks like they start this coming Friday at 1 in the morning. 1 in the morning Pacific time. So it's one of those ones where you're either staying up real late or getting up real early, depending on what part of the United States you live in.
Fortunately, I don't sleep.
Yes, I've noticed. That makes life interesting sometimes, but yeah, that's this coming weekend starting the 21st. And then after that, it's BlizzCon.
And I might have tickets for that. I will hopefully get to be there and see the finals live. My money, for the record, in terms of who gets through, I think it's going to be France and the UK.
Yeah?
That's my prediction for the moment.
Really? And why those two?
Well, because they have because they've all got players that are very high level at what they do and have competed at the professional level for a very long time at the top tier. Germany has a very good coach in Radio Boy, who coaches Angry Titans, one of the top teams in Europe right now. And Netherlands has a good number of pro players as well, though I don't know as much about most of them. France, however, has Soon AKM, Nico of Rogue fame, Poco, Benbest, who is a tank player who's been grinding in the Tier 2 scene for a very long time, Unko and Wins, the support duo from Rogue back in the day, and Unko's been killing it on Dallas and Valiant before that, and they have a coach from the Valiant.
So yeah, so that's a hell of a team assembly.
That is a murderer's row.
That is a good way to put it.
And up next, the UK has Kib and Mikey A from the British Hurricane, who did not look anywhere near as good as they did in Contenders Season 1. But Kib and Mikey A are really good DPS players who are big threats and can pop off. Smex is the off-tank, he's on NRG Esports. He's another one of those pros that has been around for a good long while and has performed very well in a number of roles, and I think he's maybe a few good performances away from breaking into that top scene. Same for the main tank, Christopher, who has played for a number of teams. This is his second year as the main tank for Team UK. He's known for his Reinhardt play, and he's pretty impressive in that. And then as your DPS, your support duo, you've got Boombox from the Fusion, and Cruz from Toronto Esports, who's another player who's been around for a very long time in the Overwatch scene, and has played on teams with a lot of players that have ended up in Overwatch League and other top-tier teams. Like, he and Boombox actually used to be a support duo for E United.
So these
Or
are
no,
two
he was
teams.
DPS at the time, my bad.
So these are two teams that have a lot of known talent going in.
And that's why I'm kind of picking them as favorite, because also UK's coach is Hayes from the Philadelphia Fusion.
Oh, yep.
So
It'll be interesting
they're,
to see if there are any upsets then.
yeah, and I think we'll definitely see some people, make a name for themselves, but that's the excitement of the World Cup, seeing who.
Yeah, you can make all the predictions you want, but it's all going to shake out to how the performances go.
Exactly, and I am very excited to see how those go.
Well, I'm sure your lack of sleep will be really, really good for seeing everything. I'm just going to be
I
doing a
know.
lot of VOD whenever I can get to it.
Yeah, and dealing with the occasional just rant from me on Discord.
All in caps lock. This is happening. This is a thing that occurred. Great. Let me mark that time in the video so I can get there and be excited. I really do enjoy watching it, though. It's always a really good time.
Oh, hell yeah. And I hope they do something at Guildhall again, because getting to go out, have a few drinks, and just watch esports with a bar full of people is just an awesome experience that's still kind of surreal to me.
Well, and for me, that's the best part of being a fan of the league because it's all fine and good just watching it at home in your house. But if you're fortunate enough to be able to go to the arena, and I realize that's very much an LA local thing, or if you have a community near you that enjoys meeting up together and watching the home team or whatever team you root for if you're in the Midwest and you don't have a specific home team, like that community, being able to show up somewhere and be like, yes, I enjoy this thing, and now I can enjoy it with a lot of other like-minded people. That's why people go to football games and basketball games and soccer team games and all of that is to be able to be there with that built-in community. And I love that we're able to do that with Overwatch League. And that even if you don't have someone physically there, that everyone has Discord watch parties where there's a huge 30, 40, 50 person call and everyone's watching the game at the same time, even if it's just from their own home, and still able to talk with other fans and other parts of the community. I love Overwatch League so much. It's such a good
This is
time.
this is what it feels like to be a sports fan. Just,
Yeah.
have a friggin' community. It's great. I love it. And I love coming on here and talking about it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and watching last year's World Cup, like again, I'm pretty sure I've told this story in our episode 0, but watching last year's World Cup was the moment where I realized why people love pro sports so much. Like
And hey,
that
we'll
was
get...
the moment when it hit home like, oh, okay.
Now I get it.
Yeah. So I want to do a little bit of fan interaction before we close out for the night
Do it.
because I got a comment on our episode 0 actually from Alex Nguyen,
Oh,
I believe is how you pronounce that. And I'm bad at pronunciation, so please forgive me.
we are
Saying,
trying.
as a fellow support main, can we get your thoughts on the current status on Mercy? I still love Mercy. I will forever love Mercy, regardless of what happens. I was definitely a little wrong-footed when they changed from Resurrection being her ult to Valkyrie being her ult, but it's definitely been a change for the better. And I know there are people who are upset that they are lowering her healing per second and raising it a little bit for everyone else, but again, touched on this a little earlier in this episode. I think that's a good thing. Pound for pound, Mercy is still going to be your strongest healer. Just
I
full
don't know if
stop.
she is anymore. She
She's
was for a very long time. I think Anna's kind of working to supplant that again.
she's still getting 60 per second while everyone else is doing 50, and it's still, in terms of having a healer at your back, I would say Mercy is still one of the most consistent. Like if you have a healer pocketing you, for the most part, most people would still say Mercy, and the resurrection has a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
However, I like that we're balancing it. I like that it's no longer, oh, your comp doesn't have a Mercy, what a throwaway comp, because that's not the case anymore. Resurrection can still change the course of a fight. but
Yeah,
so
I'm glad
can...
that she's not a must pick anymore.
Oh, yeah. But that can change the course of a fight. So can a nano boost. So can a speed boost or a sound barrier. Like, I cannot tell you the number of times where I've gone Symmetra on a control map and our support person has immediately switched to Lucio, and it's been like, oh, okay, we're going to get there first and turret the hell out of the point. All right, let's do this.
I love
And
it.
never losing control percentage because we were there first and had that support and had that defense set up, and that's thanks to having a Lucio on your team. I still think Brigitte is not quite as strong of a healer as other healers, as other support characters, but still, she's no slouch.
She's got a niche for sure, and I think that she is still very strong in that niche.
And Zenyatta is a tank breaker, and you can always use a tank breaker. And Moira.
He's so useful in dive for the Discord.
Oh yeah, and that Moira is my Irish murder queen, and I love her. She's about as DPS as a support can get, and sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need someone who can just sprint with your front line. And so I do like that Mercy is no longer the be-all and end-all for supports. Like, if you don't have a Mercy on your team, in your comp, you're wrong and you're going to get slaughtered. And so I like that they're doing that. I like that they're evening things out. It might make... We'll just have to see how it goes from here. We'll have to see how it plays in professional. We'll have to see how it plays in just quick play, which is where I live my life. But I approve.
Yeah, and we'll get to see how it goes in the World Cup this weekend, which that will be a lot of our next episode, and along with whatever trades and all that happen.
I'll be very interested to see what the signing scene looks like once we hit October 8th, and it's a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what happens, we're going to record on one day, and then the next day, 4 different signings are going to be announced, and that's just how it's going to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, this will be super interesting.
I think we're at a good place.
Also,
and I'm not just saying that because I've still got pizza right next to me that I want to eat so badly because I haven't eaten for like 5 hours.
This is now PizzaCast. Your podcast for all things pizza. No, we do need to talk about Busan at some point, but I also need a chance to go play on Busan.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some next week when you've got a chance to fool around with it a little more.
Weeks when we don't... I feel like this first month or so worth of podcast is going to be very, very heavy signing news because that's where we are. Yeah. And that the format's going to shift up a little once we go back into regular league play.
Yeah, it'll definitely change up as as what's going on shifts.
Yeah. We're very reactive that way. Well, until next time, CJ, you want to tell the people where they can find you?
At @the_rage_nerd on Twitter.
And I'm Katie. You can follow me all over the social medias as well as on YouTube, which is where you are listening to this right now, quite probably. And Twitch at Kiaxet, that is Kiaxet. Be sure to follow On The Point on Twitter at OnThePointPod, and also supporting our sponsor supports us. So head over to fredsbs.com, fredsbs.com, and use coupon code OnThePoint for 20% off of your entire order. Thanks for listening, you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you then, and now I get to eat.
Pizza.
This has been Pizzawatch.